communicate. People don't listen. And it is a huge challenge. So I would say that that's probably what gives me an edge. Sometimes anything is possible. And so you have to dig down, and people should start these side businesses while they have their other jobs if they're not ready to take a leap or they don't have that ability, and try something.
All right, everybody. We are live again on another Thursday of the Triple Profits podcast. And we have a special guest with us today. Wait, I'm going to hold the introduction, but thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to kick it over to my brother, JD. We also have the guru sitting here waiting to get started. I know he has plenty of questions. So I'll go ahead, kick it over to JD. Let's go ahead and get started, my man.
All right, right on. Appreciate it. Shep Real Estate here. You already know what it is. Welcome back. Today, our guest is near and dear to my heart. We actually work together in corporate America. We served time there together. I think I did 17 years. I'm not sure how many she did, but we served our time. And since leaving corporate, she has went on to be basically a serial entrepreneur and wears many, many hats, too many for me to say here. I'll let her kind of tell her story. But we have the lovely, talented Katya Lerner with us here today. Katya, thank you for joining today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Silent clap. So no, Katya, no. So like I said, I know you wear many hats. You're a mom. You're an entrepreneur, you're a consultant, you've done many things, but I also want to get kind of in the roots on where you kind of started at. So I know when we worked at corporate together, you were my floating district manager. I know you were also a district manager in other districts and things like that, but just kind of, just give me the grounds for how you kind of got started, really starting with your corporate experience. How'd you get into corporate? Was Verizon your first experience in the corporate world? And, kind of what that was like, and, eventually how you guys kind of severed ties.
Yeah. Thank you. So I would have to start you back in 1999. When I graduated high school, I left Oregon. I moved to California with some friends. We went to Santa Cruz, and I spent about 3 months doing some miscellaneous little jobs until I applied to GTE Wireless, fresh out of high school, which then eventually transitioned into Verizon in the merger. So I started, other than being in high school, working at a baseball stadium and selling, pizzas at a take and bake on, sophomore year. That was my first job. I went with GTE Wireless and pushed for a job. I think I called the guy 20 times. I just decided that that's where I wanted to work. I liked the idea of working with phones. I knew nothing about it, but I just knew that I could do it, and I'd never done sales. And I just said, you know what? Just why not? You guys can train me. So I went in there in 1999, GTE transitioned to Verizon, and I spent about 13 years with the company as it transitioned. And very different landscape over time, but very corporate, very structured. Went from big bucks in the early days with cellular technology and being like a tech expert and making great commission into a more rigid comp plan as things kind of mellowed down and people started getting phones in their hand. And but I was just on the trajectory of just promote me. I was taking some community college classes, and I just started getting promotions kind of every 6 to 12 months. And it went from sales into supervisor when they had the Circuit City kiosks. And then we went right into managing multiple stores in San Jose, California. Then I went back to actually become the lead. It was actually a test. They had the worst store in the district and they sent me there to fix it. So I was like the fix it manager, and they sent me to the biggest store. And I think, I'm not sure, but the DM had it out for me, like, we're going to put her there. We're going to see how she does, like make or break kind of thing. And luckily I kicked some butt and got promoted to be a district manager, and they moved me out to Monterey, Santa Cruz territory. So I lived in Monterey for a while. I was definitely a corporate girl. I mean, that was like, they trained me. They told you, you own your business. You are a business owner. This is your store. This is your kiosk. This is your team. And it worked, you know, like I was young. I was 18 and I was like, okay, you're going to give me this kiosk. Like I took it really seriously, you know, and
that good Kool-Aid, that good Kool-Aid.
I mean, man, like I look back now at that whole process and I'm like, oh my God, I was so naive, and not in a bad way, because they still represent a phenomenal opportunity to so many people. I mean, they're a good corporate provider, but when we shift a little bit into some gears that I think are important about the psychology behind, you know, being an employee, working, or the mindset of an entrepreneur, and kind of like where they overlap, it was dangerous at how seriously I took the assignment. I didn't take my time off. They talked about work-life balance, but it was fine because I didn't have kids. I was younger and I just wanted to make great money. And you start making money and you want to make more money. So you just keep working and they keep giving you more pieces of the pie and you keep owning more of your business. And eventually, 13 years later, you know, when I eventually left, and I'll tell that briefly, but when I did leave, I thought definitely they're going to need me. They've always needed me. This is going to be hard. And I left that day. In fact, they had me hire my own replacement, which was awkward. And I left, and like I never heard from anyone again. That was it. And I sat back, I was thinking, oh wait, so for the last 13 years, it's like blew me away. But to back up a little bit, we'll go there. But yeah, it was all about corporate. It was all about the business. Didn't take the trips that I was invited to. Very rarely, you know, Thanksgiving, we had Black Fridays. You are there. You don't get to go on vacations. You know, you're sacrificing. You're there at 4 a.m., 3 a.m. You're doing deals. I mean, now with COVID, it seems funny that we even had those mass amounts of people like racing into the stores. But so that was just my life. Like I took it real seriously. So yeah, that's how I got started. I got the promotions. And I think that right now, if I had still just continued on, like, you know, you hit 17 years. I have peers now that are at 20, 22 years. I think I could have just kept going, but I had a wake up call right around the 11 and a half year mark. I was actually, when I was working with you, and I was a floating manager, and I wanted to go back to school because I realized that back in the day in 1999, 2000, it was about, well, if you have experience, that is equivalent. And then somewhere between 2005, 6, 7, 8, and it started climbing, if you didn't have a college degree, I couldn't get hired even by the competitors. You know, like if I wanted to get a great DM job and Sprint or T-Mobile or somebody wanted to pull me over, the requirement actually for a sales associate was that you had a college degree. And here I am as a district manager, and I had never finished my schooling because I kept getting promoted. And I thought, you know what, this is a great career. And I was making great money, 6 figures, you know, like commissions, it's great. So I suddenly kind of realized, wait a minute, like, I'm you know, almost 30 and I haven't finished college, and I did want to finish college. And I don't think that if I wanted to get a new job and be competitive and take offers, like I'm in trouble, like I'm stuck now. And so I wanted to go back to school, and I asked I won't say any of the areas, but I asked could I step down. I'm a leader in the business for 12 years. I know it so well. Can I move here? I own a house there. And can I be a sales rep in your store? No, nobody wanted me to be there because they felt uncomfortable having an overqualified salesperson who could have been maybe their past manager or knew those things They absolutely didn't accommodate it. And I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but the people who are leading those smaller areas at the time in that region, I just think they could not see past like the intimidation, I guess, of working with somebody maybe that might actually know as much or more about the company, which to me, it would be the absolute biggest blessing ever. If I could just have hired a genius, that already knew the stuff, boom, you're hired. I'll give you the best raise ever. But they were intimidated by it and they wouldn't transfer me. So I made the tough choice. I cried and called my mom. I felt like I couldn't make the choice myself, like someone needed to give me permission to make a change. And I didn't actually take the leap to go into entrepreneurship. I left to go finish my education. I had a 401k. I had a lot of life ahead of me. I thought, you know what, I'll go get another corporate job later and I will build this back up. And I took the money and I sold my house and I went to UC Davis and I got my degree. And I paid for my whole life. But no, there was student loans I have a little bit of, but otherwise everything that I did from Verizon paid for me to get my degree at UC Davis. All my savings, I sold my house and I got that degree. So I graduated feeling like, okay, now aside from the people online that say you want to get hired as an intern, you need a master's. I don't know if you've seen any of these listings. People are crazy, but for the most part, I will be qualified for that job that requires that degree. So that was my goal. But I didn't have this as part of the plan when I was a junior. And again, I'm going back in my 30s to school. I got pregnant. And I literally attended UC Davis as a senior, finished on time, kicked some serious butt in that category, graduated on time with a newborn son, commuting from Fremont to Davis, and I made it work. And when I was done with school, which felt like a huge relief, I realized, oh God, nobody told me that once the kid is born, I might just not want to throw him into daycare. Like I was like, oh my God, I love him so much. Like I felt uncomfortable. So I had this new fresh degree and I was at home with a newborn son. And I was like, well, now what? Now I'm just going to give him, go back to Verizon. And actually it really was a challenge for me to think back of all of the people I managed. I was one of the youngest women and just managers in general for Northern California ever to be promoted into district manager. It was all men. It was intimidating. And so I was young when that happened. I was like 22 or 23 and people were like, you're in charge? Like, where's the guy that's going to give us the deal or whatever? I'm like, no, that's me. So, going back to that, but I didn't want to go back there. I had people who were working for me that had families and we didn't give them the days off. Like it breaks my heart. I probably didn't give you a day off. I was like, I'm thinking now, like, well, my kid is sick. I mean, this is we could go into politics and government and everything else. We have a huge, challenge on our hands with family and what we're doing for, keeping kids home if they're sick and who's going to caretake for who. But I just suddenly it broke my heart. Like there's so many families that are struggling where they're working all of those hours. And I realized I can't go back to Verizon. Like I can't go back to anything. To be honest, I can't do it. I don't want to never see my children. And I was fortunate that my partner, we had moved in, he had a stable job. So I don't want this to get confused to say, I went to school, I wasn't single, I was in a relationship, we lived together, I had a child, and he had a corporate position, he had insurance, and we were able to have that stability on one side of the relationship. So I wasn't just leaving school with a baby and then saying, oh, I'm just not going to go back, because I realized that we need to have a good, stable job. So I was very blessed to have, I wasn't paying the rent at that point, that type of thing. But I realized I got a degree in communications. I have 13 years of leadership, communication, sales. I can do something with this. And partway through, I actually got out of a few classes by doing a project. I wrote a blog, and starting to write the blog, I was like, I really like writing. And then this was right around Obama's second term. I got really into politics and I started a blog called 44 for 4 More. and it got some traction and I was like into it. And then I started building that blog up. I started working for their campaign. I got invited to their inauguration. It was amazing. And it kind of made me realize that I can use all my skill sets however I want in the world to go out there and help people. I can make a difference. I was leading volunteer groups for making calls, you know, for the Obama campaign. Sorry to not make this political, but I was on that side. And I was like, we're going to make these calls. But I started using, I could tell, I used my leadership experience. I suddenly was like, I went from being a volunteer to leading a group of, you know, 20 different volunteers in a room. And I was suddenly like taking on this role. That was my identity. I was always that leader. So we started doing that stuff. Then when I went to school, I had the same kind of thing. I was like with younger kids and I was like there for them. And then it just keeps transitioning. So I used my communications degree and my sales experience to really kind of open the door to just starting to slowly build a business. And when I was home with my newborn son, in between everything, I just started making calls. And I literally opened the phone book. I'm not from the area that I live in, and just started calling people. And I got somebody that was interested in getting some help with a blog, which I then had made at the time. So I didn't have a degree in building websites or mobile apps or anything. I'm pretty much self-taught across the board of anything that I've been able to do. But I do run a business now, Buzzword Consulting, that helps people start from scratch, taking a passionate idea, what they want to do, and start their business. And that doesn't mean that they just quit their job and jump full force, which I think people want to say, like, if I could do it, you could do it. It's like, no, that's not how this works. You can make a really good decision and, you know, take your passion and turn it into something that can make you money. And you just have to be creative and you need the skill set. So that's actually kind of what I do now with everything from websites to videos to podcasts to helping people. But I taught myself how to do that, got a few first clients, and almost all of my clients at this point are just referrals. Like everything has kept coming through and it kept growing. It's been about 7 years working in that aspect, but it started taking the school break, having the child, and kind of the sensation of like, I don't understand how to walk away from this, but it pushed me in that direction, and I'm really glad it did. But it came with a lot of trouble, like emotionally, I would say. And that's, sorry to kind of go off on that, but to pivot back is I didn't know who I was anymore because I went from being a district leader.
Yeah, no, touch on that, because I think that's something that's a hidden thing that people don't realize they may deal with. And I know I dealt with that myself, you know, having a position of what you deem important, but it's really only important in that sector. It's only important in that environment. But yeah, no, speak on that. Like, what was that like? Did that interrupt? Did that make you hesitant to get out there and try and build something on your own? Did it? How long did it affect you? How'd you get over it? What'd you have to do?
Yeah, I don't think I got over it for a lot of years, but I realized when people had asked, you know, what do you do? I was still living in the past, saying, I couldn't just say I'm a mom trying to start a business. I was like, oh, I used to work here. I used to do this. Like it was my answer. And I caught myself one time going, why am I talking about this? Like, this is not my job. And I realized that I didn't know that it slumped into kind of a depression. And, you know, I was pregnant, so I had a lot on my plate and I was focused and I was graduating from school. But at the same time, I was kind of like really important to a lot of people. I had 16 stores, 100 something employees. And then I was like nobody. And I left and they taught me to own my business, and I did it and I did it and did it and I built it. And then I didn't matter anymore the next day. And I never heard from them again. I'm not even exaggerating. I kept in touch with probably 6 people or so from hundreds. I literally it wasn't even like, hey, you want to check on your phone, or like, hey, how's your transit? I mean, nothing. It was as if none of it existed. And to this day, I think I do feel like it's a different lifetime. I don't know if you feel that way.
I work in a corporate environment as well, and we call that, did you get the party on the way out the door, right? because as the company grows, as large as the company is, you'll get to a point, especially in that type of environment where you're so spaced out, where you don't regularly see your colleagues, you won't get a party. And that's kind of common in that corporate environment. I've been at smaller companies where you get a party on the way out the door and you still may not hear from people, but that's just kind of, how the job goes. And being working myself for like 17 years, I can feel what you're saying about, not, it's like you do so much and then you walk away and it's kind of like,
I mean, it blows you away, I think, and no one's ready for it. I don't think in that capacity, especially after so much time.
Very true.
Now,
Very
I got
true.
a question too. So as you were building these stores, starting so young and building up, I think you said 16 stores. Was it like your goal to say, I'm going to outshine these other older gentlemen, or, what drove you there?
I was in sales. Some people started as customer service and then slowly, I felt competitive in the beginning because we had the opportunity to compete pretty heavily for our paychecks in a small environment in the beginning. And then I realized that it wasn't going to be, it was really just, however hard I wanted to work, I realized that company was going to reward the hardest worker. It was like not even the equivalent. Like there were people that were more qualified for me. And I know actually there was twice, it was kind of political. They were like, I can't believe they hired you over so-and-so. And I was like, why not? What? But it was because they had, maybe the degree or they had done something different. But I was like the hardest working kind of person in the room in those different environments, and it got noticed and they valued that. So for me, I kept getting rewarded for my hard work. So I kept competing for more of those rewards. And I mean, I do think at least it was good. I wasn't just there to be loyal. I was making really good money. So I wanted that money. I liked shopping. I liked having a comfortable, nice place in my 20s and having whatever car. And I mean, it was like 6 figures, just like I was into it. So they reward you on that and it works, but I do think if I had started, if I was maybe 30 or 28 or something after college, and then I would have had maybe a different set of like responses that had been built in to the requests and demands that they had. But I left literally right out of high school before I even turned 18, moved there. And it was almost like a second family. Like I was in there and they taught me everything in the beginning, what I knew. I didn't have experience when I started there. So I owe them a lot, I think, for what I learned, but I was so loyal and so bought in, but I was being rewarded. And I think that the carrot at some point, I was like, this is worth it for me, until I realized, like I said, there is a cap. I can't now even move laterally. I can't be a sales rep at Sprint. Like I was like, this is a trap. And it started to work me backwards and realize that there's an issue. And the guilt. I was just constantly guilty. I was literally sick, so sick, and I still was being forced to like come in or feel guilty and all of those kinds of things. So yeah, it was a series of wake-up calls after that, point.
Let's be honest here. Did you give JD the time off? Did you give him those vacation days?
I want to see what she's gonna say. Yeah, I want to see what she's gonna say.
I know. The good thing, this is the best thing. So I have been like the hard boss, the nice boss, I was his floating manager. So I was not his direct district manager. When I actually tried to transfer, I partnered with a good friend of mine who was his district manager. They kind of created that position for me. There were some leaders in the company that wanted to help me out. So I was trying to move and I got to partner. She was the one that didn't give JD off the time. I'm gonna throw her under the bus. But it was fun. It was like in my relationship, like I'm like, the mean mom, like dad gets like the nice role. I got to be that in corporate. It was like mom and dad, she was cracking down. And I, in our circumstance, when I worked with JD, got to be like, okay, let's just ignore her. Like, let's be cool. Cause I was. So we got to have fun. But yeah, there was stuff. It was heartbreaking, actually. I mean, vacations, families, people who had, 4 or 5 kids, and they just said no. And you can't lose your job over it and you struggle and it's stressful and people would come by, and I really can't even imagine now that I'm a mom and I'm older. I just turned 40. I can't even imagine being in that same structure and being told you have no options. It blows me away, and I
I think
feel
it's a
for it.
good transition from, you're having your son, was your first child?
Yeah.
So having your son, and then I heard you say you realized that you can't really leave him at home. How was that transition from saying, okay, I'm not leaving this child, to I'm gonna start Buzzword? Was there anything in between? How did that go?
Well, I didn't set out to be a stay-at-home mom, I guess was my point there, is I had planned to go to school, to go back out into the workforce to make more money. I didn't leave work to never go back. I hadn't had that realization yet. I knew I didn't like to stay where I was and I had to move, but I just saw myself using that degree to go forward. I hadn't planned to have a child at that time. Things work out the mysterious ways that they do. My point being is that I thought in my head, well, I'll just find childcare. And I know that if I had been, again, I feel very fortunate. I was in a scenario where we could do that based on his job and structure. So my advice is not to not go back to work. But in my moment of trying to figure it out, I thought it would just be find the daycare and give your child, but I had never been a mom before. And it was like this love from the baby, and he didn't want to lay down and he only wanted to be on me, and he cried, and I was like, I suddenly was just like, I don't know, but I felt guilt actually because of my work integrity and how my work ethic is so strong, that I felt like if I don't contribute to our household and I do want to stay with him, I have to do something. And I think that it was the culture from Verizon that helped push me to think of what skill sets do I have? What can I do? I just graduated with a degree in communications. I can communicate, I can help people. I was like, I know, that communication is key. And if you aren't communicating well, your business is toast. I know from Verizon, Net Promoter Score, getting referrals, world-class customer experience. How do you delight people? I was like, I can use these tools. So I was trying to figure out then, how can I solve kind of this like melancholy in my heart of thinking to go back to that corporate job and utilize my degree, or could I be smarter? And I actually also, I have two parents who are entrepreneurs, and I grew up with that as a role model. And that's different because my partner, he has parents who now have pensions from corporate jobs, and they were loyal to that forever. And he's, we're also doing entrepreneurial stuff, but he's been that one stable role. And I think that that also plays a major factor, is the family guides and like who's going to approve of what moves that you're making, because you do want to please the people that you know. And fortunately for me, I mean, just risk wise, my mom was like, hey, take the risk, do you, like, follow your dreams, kick some butt, it's just like, no problem. And I don't think everyone has also that person. There's a lot of people's parents who might say, don't you dare thinking about quitting that stable job. But I wasn't happy there, and I didn't think I could do it as a mother. I would have gone and gotten a different job if I needed to, no doubt. Work is important. I would never be starving, like, just to not work. I wanted to work, and then I found a way how to do it from home with Buzzword. And I will just say this, and then I'd love to hear, I don't want to bombard the conversation, but I really want to mention that there is a misconception that you have to do things in a certain order to launch your business. And you can start, with your Social Security. You don't need an LLC. Like, you can start anything that you want to start and just start it. And then you go and see if you're at a 9 to 5, like if you have a passion in something that you love, you can still just start. And then baby steps, you grow your business. But there's so many people that contact me that want to do everything perfect and have everything in a row and have everything organized and have everything titled and everything legal. And it's a disaster. And you know what? It's paralysis, and they don't pull the trigger. And I have to keep following up with them. And force people, but they come back, they're like, thank you. I have turned ex-Verizon people into literally, amazing author, started his blog, and he's 3 years later, he just wrote his 3rd novel. He's wanted to be a writer since he was a child. It's beautiful to see how that support, you just get, and then you dive into it, then these beautiful miracles happen. But there's not a set structure of how it works. And I think people overcomplicate that transition, definitely.
So listening to your story, I'm like hearing all the things that you're kind of like been doing, and I kind of feel like life has been pushing you here and pushing you there. And I think one thing that I hear you do really, really, really well, that a lot of folks, you kind of said this earlier, don't do well, is kind of go with the flow and allow like your circumstances kind of create your inspiration for what you're gonna do next. Going to school, then leaving school and going and being an entrepreneur, and then using all these experiences you kind of have from your mom and your husband to like go and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, I think last time, the episode before, and you guys were talking about leveraging, I think, the resources and people around you. And to that point, I learned really early on that it wasn't like this whole American tale of like, or the dream, like, oh, if I can do it, you can do it. I said that earlier, but actually, no, it's pretty much like who you know and who hooks you up and who's helping you and, what resources you have. And I mean, I definitely developed a barter system of, hey, I don't know how to do this, but I know how to do this. So do you want to trade? And I would work with and partner with other entrepreneurs. And then I think actually the reason why I took it from business consulting, talking about just like communication, I was gonna try to be a consultant for a corporation, like independently, where they can hire. I've heard they make really great money, and you go in and you kind of fix things, for like a really big company and charge them a bunch of money and go in there and like do your thing and leave. And you're just this consultant. It's kind of like mysterious. But when I started talking to people, I realized that the biggest problem everyone has, nobody has a marketing budget. Everyone's broke, and everyone's trying to like build everything on their paycheck or get another job, or guess what? You stay in your 9 to 5 because you can't afford anything and you're never going to be able to start the business. So then I thought, well, what is the biggest thing I could do if I want to start a business, was to learn the marketing side of things. And I had technology in my background with Verizon and worked with phones and all kinds of stuff that felt like to other people technical jargon that was complicated. It wasn't too much, but I just dove into going, well, if I could make a blog, I could probably make a website. And if I can make a website, I could probably figure out how to do this. I've dabbled in music. I knew how to use Logic and Final Cut. I started making some videos. Like I just started figuring out how I could use some of those tools. And then I realized that everyone else, like you talk about wearing hats, JD, I mean, the hardest thing I think truly is that people, you're not an expert. Like just because you start a small business doesn't mean you either have to or do know anything about marketing yourself. I mean, you are not a marketer, like I was not originally. I was like, well, how am I going to start this? How am I going to promote myself? And I have so many people like, hey, I've been trying to do this myself, or I'm doing all my social media, or I'm trying to do this advertising, and they don't, or they just don't know what they're doing. And so I thought for myself in that scenario, why don't I start figuring this out, because I'm a fast learner. So I went after it. And that's actually why I took that business on, is because I realized that that was what people needed the most help with, especially when they're trying to start. And so that was why I segued there. But I made a mistake. I offered too many services and I burned myself out because I was trying to do all these things. But as you guys probably know, like an algorithm for social or Google, it changes like every day. And so if you're going to be an expert in something, you should be really good at doing it. I couldn't keep up. I was like, all the technology was changing and I was offering all of these services. So then I scaled it way back. I kind of broke up with a bunch of customers. I'm sorry. I was like, I found replacements for them. I was like, I'm going to not do this. I'm not going to do your social media posts. I'm going to design and I'm going to build websites and apps. And so I closed it down. It opened up a little bit more back to podcasts and videos, but more for existing customers. So I had to narrow it down. And I think that's key too. You don't have to launch a store with 500 products. You can sell one product, you can do one service and you do it really, really well. So I probably could have done better faster had I really honed in on like, I am an expert in videos or something, or I just build funnels, but I didn't do that. And I learned that kind of the hard way, maybe in the first 3 years of trying to figure out how I could utilize my skills to help other people while being at home.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Can you describe a little bit? Because I know you gave some good tips, especially for people starting out in business. What is it like to work with you, say the first week? What does that look like for somebody brand new, needs guidance? What does that look like?
Well,
Overwhelming. I can
I'm
tell you.
and they're going, okay, I think I understand what you're saying. No.
Go ahead, Connie. Go ahead. I was gonna tell you my experience real quick when she reached out to me when she saw that I made the move to real estate. And thank you first off, Katya. I really, really appreciate it because it's like you said, like sometimes you separate from that corporate entity or that environment, and people just, like you said, everybody goes about their own business. No harm, no foul. It just is what it is. But I love the fact that you saw what I was doing. You encouraged me to do it, and you were willing to help. And like you said, I was coming into it literally with no marketing budget, didn't know what to do. And Katya reached out, was willing to first off give me a lot of tips and tricks on what I could do to get my real estate business off the ground, but helped me build a website. Knew like the stuff that me and you talk about now, Marcus, that I was so far removed from that language. I was literally on the phone with her like, what, like ClickFunnels, search engine optimization, what are you talking about? You know, and she was just, and I won't even lie, like, because I knew what she was giving me was great information and very vital information. She was really willing to help because she knew who I was. She knew what my work ethic was. She saw something in me that just wanted to help. And she was really willing to do it at that point for nothing. I didn't even feel right because I was just like, how I'm built. I'm like, man, I can't not give you nothing, you know, but she was really, really doing it from the kindness of her heart. But then also, like, it goes back to what you're saying, bartering. You were using the resources around you. And trust me, Katya, like, I've not forgotten that. I'm like, I'm pay her back and get you, I'm going to take care of you some way or another.
Oh, when you get all those closes on the house, I keep seeing the champ coming through with all these.
That is the goal. But definitely, it's. I can say that you're going to get more than you plan on getting when dealing with her. But go ahead and answer it.
I will say though, so it was a win. I targeted you for 2 reasons. One, I totally believe in your capabilities, and I loved working with you, and I know that you are good at anything that you decide to do. So I just already felt really confident in talking to you about this. But at the time, I was trying to figure out also how to build a real estate funnel. And then I randomly figured out that you were in starting. And I go, well, that makes sense. So I actually said, I kind of tricked him a little bit, but I was like, I have a friend. I was like, why don't we build an example? I was partnering with this other firm, but I was like, why don't we build an example? But instead of just putting all the placeholders, let's make it real so people can really figure it out. And I was like, and I have this friend named JD who just started this business, and we could just put all his information in there. And he was like, that's a great idea. And I was like, yes. So I called JD and I was like, hey, I'll help you build a site if you don't have one. And he said he was using some stuff that the other company had. So I pulled kind of the partnership that we had to use instead of just all the dummy text that we usually do to make it for you. And I did that so that, one, we wanted to test it, but it actually didn't end up panning out because you had moved into something else. The other guy had actually moved. And by the time everything was done, I ended up just making you a website. And it was because I wanted to as well. But that's how it kind of started. It was like, oh, this would be a great opportunity. And like, how could I get him to do that? But I really wanted to see you succeed. And I was learning all about how this stuff worked, like the funnel process of actually bringing in clients, kind of the residual income almost of having, you know, an MLM or something, but just having something do that work for you and not have to work so hard, and how all of this automation can actually help you. And so that was exciting. But it definitely was, yeah, that was a fun partnership. But you asked a question before, and I have now cycled into this conversation. So can you refresh what you were trying to get out?
You want to say it again, Marcus?
No.
Oh,
No, I was just asking, what is it like to start out the first week working with you?
Right, yes. Okay, so to that point, I always offer free consulting. Some people are against that, but I'm not. I think everything that I do is around that. I do believe that communication is critical. And while I've worked in Verizon World Technology, I always got repeat customers because I helped them learn. I was good at explaining things, and like especially a lot of older customers that would come in and didn't feel like they could understand. They really liked working with me. So I took that same concept, and I thought, actually, after a failed project, my husband and I, we had a huge project that we tried to do go so wrong. Now we've had it happen twice, because you're working with technology and teams and they don't deliver, and people are miscommunicating and don't speak the same language, and there's all of these issues. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, he has worked so hard, even 2 jobs, to pay for these things entrepreneurial wise out of his paycheck. We don't have funding, and has twice now probably lost, you know, 20 grand or 25, because people on the other side weren't holding up their end. So then I started to pivot, thinking, I have to do better. It's the project manager. It's like, you make or break. So I know how to make sites, but I don't know how to code an app, you know? So I partnered with a team that does, but I realized I will do that communication with everybody. So I project manage everything. I schedule free consults. We sit down, I listen to their needs. I use the same skill sets that I had, you know, with sales and service. And actually, when I was a district manager, it was BFF. I was like, everyone laughed at me. Actually, oh, I'll never forget. They stole my idea. All the men laughed. Oh, BFF. And I was like, well, it's about customer service. And if you can be their best friend first, then they're going to want to come back and work with you. And literally at the next meeting, this other guy, which I won't name, used that in front of the VP and got all this credit. And I was like, ooh. So they are big on world-class customer experience. And I know that that's why I got referrals. And I know that's why I got clients. So to this day, I will say probably the one pat on the back I could give myself is that I have not let one client down yet. I don't plan on it. I communicate clearly. I have integrity. If I give you a price, I'm not going to tell you owe me more. I'm not going to not deliver something. And I am communicating. I am the one person. I have people who work for me, but I project manage and communicate with all of my customers. I don't pass off that part of it. So they value the conversation with me. I have consultations and conversations. And so we have that bond. So when you work with me, you team up with me. And if I have resources to help pull it all together in a magical way, that's me doing it, collaborating with other people. But yeah, I bring people on, we talk for hours. I have time. I mean, sometimes I don't maybe bill enough for that, but we'll have hours of calls and I don't bill a dime, because I want to know exactly what you're trying to go for. I want to know your vision. I want to understand your strategy. And if we don't see eye to eye on that, that's why we got an app back after spending $25,000 that literally couldn't be launched. I mean, like, we had nothing. And I thought I couldn't have been more clear. I have hundreds of emails. And in one case, I even won in small claims against another company, which was impossible at the time. They said it's code. You can't win against someone in code. And I was like, watch me, because I had documented the shit out of our conversations. And we did win, and we got a lot of the money back. But people don't deliver. People don't communicate. People don't listen. And it is a huge challenge. So I would say that that's probably what gives me an edge. Sometimes it's price, depending on what I'm willing to do. Sometimes I just hook people up because I'm kind, or I really want to help people. It's just a genuine care. I want people to use their passions and feel like they can break free and do great things. But mostly it's around a lot of communication and being there for people when they need it. Yeah.
So I think that you're mentioning communication like the last couple of days, the last week or so, probably longer than that. I personally, in my business, in my personal life, that has been like the buzzword in my life, communication. And I know how important communication is. It's like you're mentioning how you really understand what someone is trying to say, and you understand it at a level, not at what they're saying, but what they're feeling. And just listening to you, I really can feel that you are a great communicator. What would you say are like the reasons why people fail to communicate like well and like really like starry-eyed communicate and really get to the point versus just they just kind of just get to the they check the box, but they don't really do it well.
I mean, this is such a cliche answer after all of this stuff, but Verizon always taught us to the why behind. I mean, JD, you have to know. I mean, it was always like, what is the why behind what they're asking you to do? What is the why behind what your goal is? Why are they trying to build this? So I think there's a lot of times I talk to coders or different people and I'd say, I want this feature. And on the surface level, they understand, okay, you want it to do this, but they didn't understand the meaning behind the whole purpose. Oh, and so we had, I mean, this is sort of side, but we added a username. It's pretty basic, a username. And then when you sign up, you have your regular name, but we had a username. And in the end, the entire integration only used the full name at sign up. And we just thought, so I didn't specify that in these screens you had to use the username. And that was in the beginning. I didn't realize that I had to be that specific. So I felt like it was a communication problem on my end. But then I thought, why would we have a username? I just want to know what you thought. Like we turned it around because I was taking the blame. I'm like, yeah, I really screwed up. I didn't write in there that this specific part was supposed to be. And you know, it's different with a website. You can change a page code. An app is dependent. You make one change somewhere else, you change the code somewhere else, you change the code. It's a big job. So if you screw up, it really can cost you a lot of money. You have to be very clear. So I've learned this over the years, but then I turned it around thinking, so what were you thinking when we said, let's make sure we have a username? We paid for you to build this username functionality and create it and make sure that it's unique and not taken and a check mark and all of these functions. What the heck are you using a username for? Nothing. And so I realized they weren't getting like granular with it. And people will call me and say, well, here's what I want to do an app for. And they'll be really like, I want to do a car wash that's mobile with this or whatever, but they don't know the technology. They don't know what's capable. I said, well, let's just take a step back. You don't know the technology available. What is your vision? What is your dream? Like picture it as big and as bold as you can possibly go. What do you want this to do? And so then they'll start to scale back because they're like, well, I'm trying to take this to the next level or this, you know, and then you start to get more, but people don't ask those questions. And when you get to know why someone is driven to try to create this app, it's not just a gambling app for this. It's not just about sports. It's not just, there's a reason why people are passionate about the things that they're trying to build. Then and I just think if you're going to give people advice, and I think coaches fail a lot of this way, you have to balance visionary and granular detail. And it's hard, but I feel like the experience I had in corporate, as much as I am now against all of that, but it was still the bedrock and the foundation that gave me that structure. And then I could go into that detail, but you can't lose sight of the grand vision and dreams of what people are trying to build. And I think that everyone just goes, okay, I'm gonna take a note. You want this, check the box, like you said, and we're good to go. And you don't have a clue. You literally took $25,000, built an app, and you have no idea how it scores. You don't know how the game works. You can't tell me how this feature is utilized. It was mind blowing. And it was a huge failure. It was a miscommunication, but I realized I will do better for those people. What's gonna stop me? I was like, I will find a team that can work for me. And I will make sure that nobody loses 25 grand on their first app, because it was heartbreaking. It was hard. It came out of savings and it's gone, and it will always be gone. That money is gone. We got nothing. But I realized that we will, and I've prided myself on it, even if it comes out of our pocket. I'm not gonna, they kept saying, you want this? 3,000, you want this? 5,000 more, you want, and I'm like, well, we thought it was part of it. You're the expert. We're not the expert. We thought you were gonna. So it's like a cycle, and people get afraid. You know, people don't want to say what their marketing budget is, and then, you know, people just take advantage of it. So if you don't get the why behind what people are trying to build, and you're going to try to help them, I mean, you're not in a position to help them. I mean, basically, the communication is to peel back the layers, understand the why behind what everybody is trying to build, and then help them build that. But you also are helping them with their confidence, motivating them. People get told to me all the time, okay, we're going to do it. I'm going to send over the payment. We're going to get started, blah, blah. And I was like, they ghost me, like dating, you know, you're like, and then they just start like, I can't do it, you know? And it's like, well, nobody's asking you to quit your job tomorrow. Let's just do it. Let's just get the blog up. Don't worry about it. Let's just look at what the site might be. Let's just see what it would be like if you wanted to do this for a friend and get some feedback, you know? So, yeah, people, their fear, you know, gets in the way, but the communication, it's like, you're actually really, you're coaching them too, to like trust themselves and follow their instinct, and maybe be the voice that they don't have in their family. Like we said, my mom did tell me I needed to hear it that day. You can quit your job if you want. And I was like, I can? Because I felt, no, I can't. I have to do this. I made a commitment to them, or I can't let them down, or what would someone else say? And she's like, who cares? Like, if you want to go to school, go to school. And I was like, okay. And I like sobbed for an hour, and I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I never heard from anyone again. I mean, it was bizarre. But it was like, how do you wrap up 12 years? And it was like 2 weeks and it's done. I mean, the identity crisis was real. But yeah, the communication of it will always, and I'm glad I majored in that, but it will always make or break your project. And I don't care what industry you are in, 100%. If the team is not communicating, or they don't have that same visionary ideal, it will not succeed or reach its best potential. Just, I have not found any way to work around that with any client, ever.
So, one thing though that you didn't bring up, what is this app? And I know you said it's coming out soon. Can you disclose?
Yeah, I was on the fence with that, because actually, I'm not sure when this is going to air. If people are doing this now, like we're live here, then I don't want anybody to go download it. So I actually was thinking about we're about to launch a big refresh, and I'm really proud of the app, and it's going to be big. I think maybe what I might do is ask for you guys to send out a little.
Who's it for? Don't give us all the details.
Yeah,
Who is
yeah,
it
yeah,
for? Who should be looking out for this app?
Yeah. So if you communication, it's related around communication and music. So if you are in music of any kind, even audio, podcasting, recording, if you deal with audio files, if you like music, if you make music, and if you communicate with others, you need this app. So
we'll leave it there.
Yeah, it will be refreshed and rebranded and coming out in the next week or so. And yeah, I will share the news promptly.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So we've been going a while. We got your full story, everything. I'm excited about the app. I'm glad to learn about your journey that got you to this point today, and I'm sure everything is going to continue to be success. It sounds like once you get your hands on something, you just turn on fire. So
well, but it hasn't come without failures. And I will just say, as one last thing, COVID happens, and I lost a lot of clients. Because I specialized in small business and nonprofit, and they took the biggest hit. So that was huge. So just keep in mind, like, you're riding the wave. And if you, I mean, just with the ocean, if you fight and you're trying to stay afloat and the ocean's trying to push you down, that's when people drown. Like, you got to like go with the tide and the ebb and flow. It goes up, it goes down. I have more clients, I have less clients, but COVID was a huge hit. I understand. I'm not on here today saying like, hey, everything has been a success. We have had so many setbacks in different ways. But I pivoted, and this all ended on this. I sat with my kids with their homeschool making earrings because I was at home, and I had just had like 7 clients cancel their huge projects, and it was pretty devastating and stressful. And I had that as a hobby, and I thought I might as well make a website. So I made the website for my earrings, which I've never sold before. And I don't know, somehow with a Facebook group and a few people and a fundraiser and doing something nice for someone else, in my first year, I brought in like $35,000. Pivoted my business from all of the website clients that were like falling off. All of a sudden, I started this other business. I was willing to give it a shot because I just was trying to figure something else out. I had no idea that was going to happen. I thought I would just sell some Christmas presents kind of thing and just like have some fun. And now, like I was saying earlier, it literally is like I have a big retail partner that is asking me to make some elements for their actual corporate line. And it's extremely exciting. If I could kind of throw everything else away and just make earrings all day, I might, because it's so passionate. I love it. So I have this earring shop, but it was because COVID. And so I just want to end on that, because COVID was devastating and people find that still, but it all still, like, I lost a whole bunch of clients, and it opened this door because I was looking for opportunities to figure out what else I can do, what other skill sets I had. I would never have thought, well, I could be a jewelry maker. Like, that wasn't like my career goal. It was like, what other skill sets do I have right now? I'm at home with my kids. I'm teaching them both like in my house. I can't even go anywhere where nobody's leaving the house, and it's devastating, but there's always some sort of opportunity. What are you good at? And people don't realize how many things. It's extraordinary what you can come up with and sell. People make millions of dollars making templates in Canva and selling them for you to redo. People write the ebooks, and how, like, if you're really good at online dating and that's your skill, guess what? You can go and make a guide about how to be the best, success at online dating. It doesn't have to be like an actual craft. You don't have to be, have a degree in engineering in order to do something. If you have a story, or if you have a skill, and it could be, as simple as dating. I mean, people don't realize that in a digital world, I mean, it's magic. Anything is possible. And so you have to dig down, and people should start these side businesses while they have their other jobs, if they're not ready to take a leap or they don't have that ability, and try something and dig in a little bit, because it's kind of endless. But COVID opened that up, and now I have 2 businesses that I'm juggling, but I love them both. And it was kind of an accident, but it was out of tragedy. So you just can't, mindset matters, we all know, you got to get back up. I'm not perfect. I get depressed and things come up and you get stressed, but you just keep looking for other little different ways to pivot, and it works. The world will reciprocate.
Like, can you let the people, let the world know how to get in contact with you and support you, not only your, for future when you unveil everything about your jewelry, but your consulting? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, my website is buzzwordapps.com. So Buzzword, BUZZWORD apps.com. I have some info there. My jewelry shop is katyajuliet.shop. And everything that I do, I have a Facebook group that I give VIP discounts to, and we have a lot of fun. I sell some crystals in there too, but all of the earrings that I have in my shop are handmade. And self-taught. I mean, I think that's kind of just the stuff. I don't claim to be an expert in all of this because I have the biggest, degree in the world. Like, I'm just really motivated. I like to try on new things and figure it out. And so I love what I do and I'm passionate about it. I think that spreads. So both of those sites are made from my heart. And in between, I'm really willing to help anybody else. You can LinkedIn, Facebook, you'll find me. Buzzword Consulting and Katya Juliet's Jewel Box is what it's called, katyajuliet.shop. So yeah, I'm around. And with digital, anywhere, I'm in California, but I have clients on the East Coast and left and right, we can partner together, and I'm always willing to help out nonprofits. And money is not the main thing for me at this point. It's how can we work together? And I want to see people bring their dreams into fruition and be able to really do what they love. And those are the wins. I'm not bringing in 6 figures like I was with Verizon, and I have a partner that is supportive and that sort of thing. But I have huge wins also when I'm bringing all of these other businesses and helping people establish their dreams and their visions and bringing more apps and small businesses into the world. It's exciting, and I celebrate with them. So that I consider a victory, as well as just that I get to still help people in that way. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Thank you. JD, you want to go ahead and close us out, man?
Man, yeah, no, that's freaking great. I tip my hat to you as always, Katya. I think that's the reason you are successful. Like, I think you genuinely want to help people, and you get a lot out of that. You know what I mean? You that fuels you, and it comes out with how you help people. It never, I feel like you treat $1 million client like you treat a $10,000 client. Like, it'd be the same, you might honestly treat that $10,000 client better because you want them to be successful. So no, I appreciate you. Keep doing what you are doing. Let me ask you, just being that this is the Triple Profit podcast, you dropped a lot of jewels, you dropped a lot of great info. What are 3 things of advice, 3 tips, whatever the case may be, 3 things you would give a young upcoming entrepreneur or small business, someone that's trying to start a small business? What are 3 things of advice you would give them?
I would say, don't try to do too much. Don't try to do everything. Don't try to be an expert in everything. Like, I think that people feel like if to start again, you have to do it all. You don't. You can stay in your lane and you can do what you do really, really well. And then you need to be able to ask for help or admit that you're a beginner. I think that a lot of people don't want to admit that they're just starting out in their field. And I think you were touching on that with real estate. If you are starting out, then own it and do what you do best. Don't try to compete with the other person who does something similar but has 20 products and you have one. Do you. I think that's really important. I definitely think that probably the biggest thing, it's easy to say, but you cannot let fear paralyze you. And when you realize that, it's pretty much what holds us back. And you can't just, jump off a cliff and quit your job, but you can always take a step. You can always, if I went back and I had taken 1 night class for the 13 years that I was at Verizon, I wouldn't have to have quit and paid for all of that, taken out my 401k and gone to college, because I could have done that, but I didn't really see that little break off baby step and how it would have accumulated over time in order to get to that goal. So I would definitely say, like, the fear part of it is that you just have to add little pieces in. It's not always about, love that people say take the leap, but I think it makes people feel like they literally have to quit their job and then try to become an entrepreneur, and that's not real life. And nobody else has just like backers and funding and all of this stuff happening. So that's key. And I guess number 1 is you have to be genuinely you. You cannot, there's copycat stuff. You can take work smarter, harder, that's great. But I know that people like working with my company because we connect, and that comes down to the communication. And if you aren't able to connect with your product through your brand or, that vision with the clients, if you are going B2B or retail, you have to be able to be your authentic self when you're working with people. And I think that the best deals I've ever closed was when I was the most vulnerable and honest about like some of my experiences and sharing and talking, not trying to just put on my sales hat and close a deal and do a killer, presentation. So the more authentic and and generous and reciprocal you can be in a single conversation can make or break that. You don't know, they might turn around and have everything that you needed, even though you thought you were trying to sell them. And suddenly they're like, you know what? I'm going to hook you up with this. And I've had that happen. And it's extraordinary where you're like, oh my God, I am so glad that we just connected. But it's the personal connection, communication. I mean, number one. And if you feel uncomfortable, there are so many resources out there to learn how to better communicate. You don't have to read a million books. Even just learning how to express your feelings, different words, have a more colorful vocabulary. So you're not just saying the same thing, but you're learning how to really express and help, reiterate other people's feelings and mirror, there's a lot of psychology behind interacting with people. You guys know that psychology behind sales. But I feel like you have to find a way to connect people to people. So
I love it.
Awesome.
Shoot, no, that was great closeout. Damn, that was a great closeout. Shoot, I love it. Man, great way to end it. Shoot, Tavante, you got anything else, brother?
No, I appreciate hearing your story, Katya, and learning all the things that you've done. And I can't reiterate everything you said about communication. It's just so key. Like I said, I could just tell that you're a great communicator because you've done a great job on the podcast, just telling your story. And yeah.
All right,
Well,
so
hey.
Marcus, go ahead, man. Close. Wow.
I'll go ahead and close it out. Thanks everybody for watching again, the Triple Profit Podcast. You can find us on Facebook in our Triple Profit Podcast Facebook group. You can find us on YouTube, Triple Profits Podcast. And also don't forget, you can check out our website, reifinancialgroup.com, where if you have any idea or you have a question about getting funded, you can come over, have a consultation. It's free. But until next week, everybody, take it easy.